This is Joe Rosemaric, and in this video we're going to talk about different types of fishing line that is used. There are three main types you run into. Monofilament, often referred to as mono. Fluorocarbon, often referred to as fluoro. And braid, often referred to as braid. Each of these line types has different pros and cons, just like any other material. And there's certain situations where it may be advantageous to use one type of material over the other. Now, if you look in the background, that's my spool. It's a 2-foot rod that I put across a couple of studs so that I can wind line right onto a reel off of the bulk spool. So the first type of line is monofilament. Monofilament has one main advantage, and that it's cheap. It is the most cost-effective line to be using. The cons to monofilament: it breaks down in the sun. It has a stretch. It'll stretch up to 30% when you have resistance on both ends of the line. So it's a little bit harder to get a hook set on. But if you have 10 rods to go and to put together, or if you have like a kids fishing tournament, or you're helping the Boy Scouts or something like that, mono, it does work. It works just fine. Just understand that there's a little bit of a performance inhibitance. This spool here was 330 yards, and I think it was $7. This light blue one here was 500 yards, and I think it was $2. You can get it for really, really cheap. The second kind of line is fluorocarbon. Fluorocarbon has a couple advantages. One, it's stronger than mono. So an 8-pound fluoro is going to have a smaller diameter than an 8-pound mono. I have both of these right here, and I don't know if we can see this in the camera or not. The fluoro is about half the size of the mono. So if you get into dive curves and things like that, smaller diameter line has less drag. It allows you to dive deeper. You get better casting with it. Two, it has a refractory index that's very similar to water. What that means is basically in water, the fluorocarbon line is going to look a lot like the water, and you're not going to be able to see a line passing through the way that you could monofilament. The monofilament will have a shadow. It'll have reflections off of it. You're not going to see that as much with the fluorocarbon. And then three, it doesn't stretch as much. So the stretch factor on this might be 3 to 5% compared to the 30% on the mono. So you're going to get a harder hook set. You're going to be a little bit less brittle. It's going to sink faster. It does perform better, the drawback being the cost. The third type of line is braid. Braid, you can usually tell because there'll be a difference in texture, where your fluorocarbon line and your mono are both smooth. This here it's going to look like a rope or like yarn. You're going to see the individual twists of the smaller lines that make up braid. Braid has, this particular brand of braid I think was about $6 for 150 yards. So it's more expensive than mono. It's around the same price or slightly cheaper than fluoro. Braid does a few things. Again, it's stronger than monofilament. It's stronger than fluorocarbon, so you can get a smaller diameter line with an equivalent strength, or the same diameter line with a higher strength, whichever way you want to look at it. Two, braid is more abrasion resistant. So if you're fishing sharp weeds, if you're fishing rocks, if you're fishing off of bridge piers or vertical rock faces, braid is going to go and perform better abrasion-wise. You're not going to get as many nicks in your line and have break-offs. And then the drawback on braid, one is cost, and two is visibility. You can see braid. It's usually not clear. It's usually green or black. So you have to, modify your presentation to minimize the appearance of your line. In one of my other videos, I talk about using just a black Sharpie to go in to color your braided line so that it appears dark in stained water situations, or fishing at night, or fishing under cloud cover, fishing under ice. So those are the three main types of line. There are going to be variants. So I have green braid, black braid. I have some ice braid. I have colored mono. I got clear mono. I got blue mono from ice fishing. Fluoro. You know, the clear fluoro and white fluoro. So there are different variants. There's different brands. I'm not going to go and say one particular one is better than the other. There's ones I like better. There's ones that, well, I'm going fishing and this is what they've got, and that's what we'll do. So hopefully this has been informative to help you go and select line for what you're fishing for and what what the advantages of each line type